So bin Laden is dead. What's next? What's next for the war on terror?
Well, I think we're moving now very fast toward the end game in Afghanistan. I think if we just move beyond the death or the assassination of Osama bin Laden, we can see that one way or the other, the United States has been provided a face-saving way to sort of say that now we can actually get out of Afghanistan. And I think one reason why you're seeing the Pakistani government quiet on the circumstances surrounding what happened last night is that apparently the Pakistanis are also happy in government. I mean, today morning, the official statement that came out of the Pakistani Foreign Ministry was very keen on giving full credit for the operation to the U.S. government. And it was strange because normally the Pakistani government has been very careful not to get itself involved in anything that would involve U.S. military on Pakistani soil. But in this case, the Pakistani government is very happy to give full credit for the death or the assassination of bin Laden to the U.S. government. It just seems that the Pakistani officials are happy, and one reason for that is, well, if the Americans are happy and if they have something in their hands that would give them a face-saving way of saying, this is it, this is the end, and I think we should move out now out of Afghanistan or begin the process toward that goal, then this is a good excuse as any to do that.
Now, the AP is reporting that American intelligence knew bin Laden was in this particular house back in August of last year. Why do you think they waited till now to conduct the operation?
Timing is everything. I think there's been a lot of confusion over the past 6 months about where this whole war is going. And I think the suspicions of a lot of people that the United States has been using bin Laden as a bogey to perpetuate its meddling and interference in this whole region. Bin Laden was, of course, a major card in American hands to do that. And for a long, long time, as a matter of fact, I remember in my conversations with many key figures in the Pakistani military and also in the Pakistani government, they've been always very, very skeptical about the assessments released periodically by either the CIA or the Pentagon or the U.S. military or even the White House. Assessments about the strength of al-Qaeda in the Pakistan-Afghanistan region. And I remember speaking to a very senior Pakistan military officer who said that the officers have been very straightforward with their American counterparts about their skepticism on these assessments about the strength of al-Qaeda in this region. And frankly, it doesn't make much of a difference that bin Laden is dead. People here were convinced at least for the last 2 years, they've been very convinced that the al-Qaeda figures or people in this region, who, by the way, cannot number more than 100, are incapable of carrying out any major attacks or impacting the course of events in this region or beyond this region. So I think there's a strong element of timing involved. It's beneficial for the Obama administration politically inside the United States. It's also beneficial for the American intelligence community, especially the CIA and the U.S. military in Afghanistan. So everybody really walks out happy after this event.
One of the interesting things about this is that bin Laden wasn't found hiding in a cave in Tora Bora. It turned out he was in a mansion that was valued at roughly $1 million. It seemed like a rather conspicuous place for him to be. So why do you think he wasn't found earlier?
Actually, there are a lot of questions about the location where he was found. If you visit the location, you would discover it's a very small town kind of setup, and it's impossible for such a high-value target, a high-value personality to be there for a long time and not be detected. So one thing is for sure, that he's not here for a long time. Even the story of the AP that you just referred to that says that he's been here for the past 6 months. 6 months, well, you can hide yourself for 6 months anywhere if you're careful not to get caught. But even then, it's still difficult considering that one of the premier Pakistani military training institutes, the Pakistani Military Academy, the PMA, is located very, very close to this compound. There are a lot of issues, actually, a lot of questions that make the whole, or make at least major parts of the story that has been released by the U.S. government very suspicious. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of exactly what transpired last night.
And continuing along that suspicion, adding to that conspiracy theory is also the news that the administration said bin Laden's body was buried at sea so as to not create a place of homage where people can go to praise him, people who revere him. Do you think that that's a strange thing to happen to it? I mean, what do you think that'll have on all this?
I thought that was really very amusing because there was a strong element of transparency, for example, when Saddam Hussein was caught. The pictures that were released, the video footage that was released. In this case, the element of transparency is completely non-existent. The one picture that is being circulated right now is hazy, is not clear, and there's no video footage. And now, of course, we have this story about how he's been buried or how his body has been disposed of. And I think it would not be inappropriate to say that this would raise a lot of skepticism. Already here in Pakistan, for example, people are skeptic. People were not really very sympathetic to Al-Qaeda here. Yes, you'd find a lot of people who were very, very sympathetic to Afghan Taliban and very, very sympathetic to Mullah Omar. But Ayman al-Zawahiri, Osama bin Laden, I don't think they'll find many buyers here in this region. But still, people are skeptical, and I think this is an important question that the world media needs to raise. Where is the element of transparency with regards to the evidence of the possession of the body of Osama bin Laden? At least in Saddam Hussein's case, there was this transparency. It is non-existent in this case.
Now, bin Laden himself was used in U.S. politics as kind of a straw man, a person who could be called a common enemy that people could unite against. Do you think that someone will take his place as kind of U.S. enemy number one now that he's out of the picture?
We have to give full credit to the U.S. Political establishment and the military establishment. They've been always very creative in finding enemies. First, it was the Soviet Union, and then it was the Russian Federation, and then came Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, and these days, of course, we have Muammar Gaddafi, and the next ones will come, of course, definitely whenever the need arises. And we have to, of course, but I think the Americans have learned or have gone through a very, very bad experience in Afghanistan and Iraq. Things turn really very bad. Even if they try to find a next enemy, sort of consolidate their military and political power and to use that enemy. I think the United States is not in a position right now, economically and politically, to sustain that kind of those kind of ventures that we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan over the past decade. So I think there'll be a certain kind of a break here before we see the next enemy of the United States.
Now, in Libya, the U.S. is backing rebels, and there has been warnings that some of them could have links to Islamic radicalism. Do you think there's a chance that we could see the same kind of result that was witnessed when the U.S. armed the groups in Afghanistan in the 80s that later grew into the Taliban and Al-Qaeda?
For the past 70 years, there has not been a conducive environment in Libya for Islamic groups. I mean, when you talk about Al-Qaeda, for example, they found that conducive environment first in Saudi Arabia, then in Sudan, and of course finally in Afghanistan and the border region between Pakistan and Afghanistan. No such circumstance existed in Libya. It is impossible that Islamic groups would be able to organize themselves and reach a level of maturity and operational preparedness in just a few weeks or even in 3 or 4 months. I'm very skeptical about the reports that talk about Islamic presence or Islamist presence in Libya. And I think there's a certain vested interest involved in that. I think the political groupings of whatever shade, Islamist or secular, are very weak in Libya. Even the rebels that we see right now operating in Libya are very disorganized, to say the least. So I think it would be an exaggeration to subscribe to the theories that we're seeing now being floated in the American media, specifically about the existence of Islamist threat in Libya. It's very premature right now.
All right. Ahmed Qureshi, Senior Research Fellow with the Pakistani think tank Project for Pakistan in the 21st Century. Thanks for your perspective.